All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to our Ironsworn Starforged campaign, Crystalline Shadows. Last time we followed Ash and Vander as they explored the interior part of the Precursor Vault they had found, encountering a group of fellow explorers while also getting separated for a time. They found some interesting bits of technology that were left over in a workshop and have stashed that away for later inspection. And now they've reached the entrance to the sanctum. They had gotten their way through a protective wall to find this big open pit in the ground that led down underneath this sort of town that was built up around the site to support everybody working there from the previous inhabitants, and found it surrounded by carnage and just a bunch of old dead bodies. So at some point a group of people got in here. Maybe it was inhabitants from the nearby town, maybe it was part of the crew of the was it the Matura? I think it was. Yes, the Matura or Mutara, however you pronounce that. They perhaps they got in and met with some sort of fate. But this is not where we are. We are on Valinor, right? Yes, Valinor is the planet's name. Felicity is the nearby settlement. So Valinor has given us this gift to explore. Sorry if there's a bit of a jump there. My software might have froze for a second, but I believe we are back. So Ash and Vander are standing outside of this pit with ramps leading deeper into the city. They've obviously got to go in to see what's down there. As bad of an idea as that seems to be, let's see what challenges. Where are we at with everything? So we're using this progress bar to explore the precursor site to track where we're at, and said about 6 progress you should be in the sanctum, so that lines up quite well. Discover and explore the precursor site. So I think we should mark progress on this one for finding the sanctum. And then we can, get in, get out, and get a little bit more progress to finish this up nicely. So we're gonna mark some progress right there to start this, so I don't forget. And I think we're good to get into it then. We'll need to undertake an expedition here shortly, but let's set the theme. As they're creeping in, I'm sure Ash has his sword out, taking the lead, getting ready to defend against whatever might have caused this. Last time we said that all the bodies are old. They're skeletons. They've been here exposed to the elements for quite some time. Some have been clearly the subject of predation of scavengers, So it's impossible to really tell what killed them and what scavenged the bodies afterwards. But I'll say that Vander finds a gun, some older model rifle with we'll say so old that it doesn't use the heart crystals, I believe we called them. Yes, heart crystals. I keep forgetting that because I don't bring up the name enough. But old enough to where it has like an actual magazine with physical bullets. And simple enough in design for them to use passably, if not, expertly. So we'll say that Vander has finally armed themselves. Just in case. This doesn't seem like a place you want to be in unarmed. But they'll still let Ash take the lead, bravely or stupidly, as you can judge for yourself for the future. Now, as a reminder, we also rolled incredibly well last session, so I'm sure this is going to go horribly wrong as we descend into the sanctum. The light from the sun above shines down into this hole like a spotlight, showing below the remnants of the staging area, that these curved ramps that coil around the outer edge of this pit lead down to the remnants of a ship. Not like a ship, but like a transport, like the equivalent of like a sci-fi hover four-wheeler with a trailer attached to it, long since rusted out and half decayed, visible with the remnants of a couple of crates that had been left abandoned when the site was either fell or was left. Let's check out the oracles real quick. I'm sure there is a first look, feature, peril, opportunity, purpose. Probably not. Let me check the book, see if those are different from what I'm thinking they might be. Yeah. Let's just get a or descriptor. Is that gonna give me what I'm looking for here? Yeah, okay. Well, let's get a descriptor or two to see if maybe what the condition and look of this place is once we get down into the center of the entrance. Infested. Okay, so we said that this place is all about, fungus and stuff, which sort of a two-nickel situation. I ran a session of a different campaign earlier this week about a town infested with fungus as well, for a Monster Hunter horror themed type campaign. So if I had a nickel for every session like that this week, it'd be odd that it's happened twice, but so it has. I think we determined that in here was dry, as opposed to outside the sanctum entrance that was nice and damp and moist from the somewhat consistent flooding, the walls have kept this space nice and dry, except in the most extreme circumstances. So the fact that it is infected with fungus, or infested with fungus, not just infected, there is fungus everywhere. Oh, coating the walls, in the corners of the floor, all over the abandoned equipment at the center of this entryway, to the point where every time they take a step or brush against a wall or something like that, particles of this potentially deadly fungus are kind of being wafting away and crumbling into light enough particles to be carried on the air. So they're both safe for now. We've established that Ash's suit protects him, and I think given their lung condition and whatnot, Vander would have been smart enough to at least bring along a respirator, like that part of whatever spare survival equipment Ash had on board. Maybe not a full environment suit like when they went aboard the derelict, but enough to keep them safe from breathing this stuff in, especially given their condition. I think it's time to undertake an expedition. To see what we find. If we find something good or bad. And I definitely think they're going to be going slow and steady and keeping eyes about them. So we're going to roll plus wits as we undertake an expedition, staying vigilant and watching out for any potential dangers, such as this fungus. Maybe they'll be able to figure out the difference between the two, or whatever mysterious being or beings potentially killed all those explorers that came before us. That is a weak hit. So on a weak hit, as above, what this progress costs you. So we reach a waypoint and make progress. We'll mark that. But obviously, we face a peril at the waypoint. So let's go back to our oracles for Precursor Vaults, and see what peril we get in this inner sanctum as they try to move deeper in. Important equipment is rendered useless. So there's two options with that. One is significantly more dangerous than the other. And I think we're going to go with the more dangerous option. The option that would make sense but isn't as fun is like their flashlights and stuff. So they have to make do with whatever emergency power they can maybe restore. To see and explore this area. So what I think actually fails, though, is those respirators we just talked about. They've been walking through this damp, moldy, fungus infested, and I'm picturing mostly more like an algae or a lichen, the type of stuff that you see like on the side of your house in the spots where it gets damp that you gotta power wash every other year, something like that. But they've been handling it okay until now. But now that they're going deeper into this more concentrated area where it's been able to just sit and grow and dry out, and layers upon layers have grown over top of each other, being mostly undisturbed for some time, it appears. this this is overwhelmed the filters on their breathing apparatus, and Ash gets a little notification in his heads-up display on his helmet. Probably not a very sophisticated heads-up display, but I'm maybe blinking lights set into the peripheral of the visor to tell him when things have gone awry, that he can maybe hit a button on the side to dismiss. Ash stops Vander, looking at him curiously before he just goes, my respirator's already filled up and needs to be changed. Yours probably is too. Be careful going forward. We'll have to get out of here, probably quick. Let us let's make haste. And what I'm gonna do for that actually is we're going to set a clock here. I'm gonna set a 6-section clock. And whenever it seems appropriate, if they get delayed or bogged down, or maybe some physical injuries that might expose their bodies to this infection, we'll tick down this clock to get closer to a potential long-term infection. Now, let's see if we can get this last little bit of exploration done before they have to leave. Now let me check real quick, see if it makes sense to roll on the purpose descriptor of the sanctum, or if we've already picked it out effectively by describing this early on. Where are the vaults again? There they are. Yeah, okay, so this is a bit more specific. We can roll on this and we'll modify whatever we roll with the consideration that this was ultimately a medical R&D, but this might have had a more specific purpose, especially since this is not necessarily just a single purpose smaller vault that was like set aside to preserve something. This is big enough to have multiple purposes. The overall purpose was medical research and the development of medical technologies, but what was the more specific focus of this vault? Preservation of maps or navigational data. So this was the center of this section of this long dead empire. Remember, this precursor empire was described as like a Rome style empire where it spanned the entire galaxy, but it left a lot of the subcultures within it more or less intact. We know that this empire was in control of a lot of places, but one of the ways they kept control was by mostly letting them keep their culture. As long as they, you know, paid their taxes and did what they were told, they could celebrate their own holidays and, you know, keep their own traditions, where they didn't directly conflict with the ruling classes agenda, views, beliefs, and whatnot. So there was probably a lot of what's the word, syncretism, where they come in and go, hey, that's kind of like our thing, so you can keep doing it, just call it this now because it's basically the same thing, that sort of thing. So maybe this section of the Empire was known for their medical technology. Obviously, we already talked about how they had some advanced cybernetic type implant upgrades sort of things where they would modify their bodies. Perhaps that wasn't a full Empire spanning practice. Maybe that was just this section of the galaxy, the culture from this system or the couple surrounding systems, however big these people were. They were renowned for their knowledge of the body and the ability to modify their bodies. So perhaps they have locations of other similar facilities stashed away somewhere in maps and whatnot that Ash and Vander will be able to discover and explore further. Places where other rare medical supplies were gathered, other perhaps warehouses and staging grounds for them to get these medical supplies that they created or discovered and distribute them throughout the Empire, sort of like a shipping network type situation. Not a full, I don't think there would be a full like map of the old Empire here, but a specific part of the infrastructure, like the mega infrastructure of the overall Empire, dealing with making sure troops and colonies and the particularly vulnerable parts of the Empire that needed to make sure they had their medical supplies and the supplies they needed to ensure they got done what needed to get done. So we might get a location of other vital places to investigate. So for now, let's see what that leads to. Let's delve a little deeper. And take another expedition to investigate further into this site and hopefully find that information. That is another weak hit, so we will get another bit of peril. We will explore the site. I'm going to say that no matter what happens, it takes a little while, so we're going to tick down that clock one as they begin to breathe in those potentially harmful spores and whatnot that are being carried into the air. Go back up here for see what peril they encounter. Yeah, we'll roll a feature and then a peril. To see what it looks like, and then the danger. So a colossal machine. So there are probably, I imagine there are multiple corridors, big enough for the sci-fi four-wheeler I described earlier to drive down. Probably bigger than that. This was a galaxy spanning empire, so I assume they know how to build infrastructure for efficiency. And even though this place is probably as decorative as it was up top, possibly even more so now that we're underground and they had the ability to just carve straight into the wall and didn't have to deal with as much of the natural environment up there. These tunnels are very convoluted. They're swirling and circling in on themselves, very spiraling and fractal, like how some of these things grow that it's inspired by. And they're traveling down these corridors looking for things, and I'm sure they find a bunch of uninteresting rooms, either long since picked clean by people getting inside or having been cleaned out when the site was abandoned. But they come across a room with this gigantic machine. Its purpose probably unknowable. It is old, it is rusted, it is covered with this algae like lichen fungus hybrid thing, and they are wandering around it trying to discover its purpose. And let's see, before I go any further, let's see what happened with their what danger occurs while they're in this room. Temptations to linger or remain in this site. So yeah, that makes sense. They're both pretty heavily invested in this place, so I'm gonna tick down the clock again as they both, Ash and Vander, are trying to figure out what this was for, and they're trying to learn about this place and learn about these people. So Vander is probably poking around the controls looking for labels and such, and let's, Ash, we've determined Ash is not the most cautious or brightest person when it comes to self-preservation. So I think we're gonna try and gather information here. I think it's pretty easy to justify Vander climbing in and looking around, trying to see what's going on, just through his engineering knowledge. So let's see if he can find any information out about these people or this place. You know, just figuring out how they put things together might give some insight into this culture. On a weak hit, the information provides new insight, but also complicates your quest. Envision what you discover, then take +1 momentum. So I'm going to take the +1 momentum. I think I can just use it here. Yeah, increase momentum to 6. Wonderful. But it also, on a weak hit, the information provides new insight, but it also complicates your quest. So I'm going to say that this tells Ash a bit about the people, but nothing useful necessarily. It's interesting, and Vander Bond very much appreciates the observations, and I feel like they're taking this time and talking back and forth. They're calling out things that they discovered, and I think overall what they find is these people were at a point meticulous and dedicated. I think that much is pretty obvious with their commitment to designing this place how it is. I think seeing how well put together this machine was back when it was maintained and before nature retook it, shows these two how just more about the culture. Everything here has been double checked, meticulously labeled. Ash can see, physical fail safes in case the internal parts of the machine broke down, so one part didn't destroy the whole thing. Stuff like that. They can just see how borderline robotic these guys were. I'm starting to picture almost like I shouldn't say Borg because I never watched that show, so I don't really know what it's like. But that Terminator-esque mentality of narrow, single-minded focus on whatever's being done and doing it to perfection was in every aspect of this culture. Not only is the architecture around here precise and oddly beautiful in a way for those who can appreciate what it is meant to represent, but this machinery and this workspace was meticulously laid out and put together to perform at the utmost level of efficiency, so their people could get as much done as possible with as little extraneous effort as possible. All that being said, that does not help them discover the information that lies at the heart of this place. But I do think them sharing this experience does deepen that connection a bit. So we're going to mark some progress on that connection so that that plot deepens a little bit. However, they still have a vault to explore, and they're still on limited time. So let's see. Yeah, sorry. I was reading the so let us delve back into the depths of this vault. I think we're going to do something a little dangerous. And we're going to roll with edge instead. We're going to represent them trying to get deeper into this faster. They know they've wasted some time. They've spent more time investigating that machine than they should have. And now they're on a bit of a crunch. They need to get to this place and then get out. So let's see how they do rolling edge to speed this along. A strong hit with a match, and that's, I don't know, well, it's a critical, but I don't know how you would consider, if you would consider double ones on the D10s crits or 6 like a max crit type thing. But a strong hit with a match is really, really good. So we hit a waypoint. On a strong hit, you reach a waypoint, envision the location of marked progress. So we mark progress. I think we've reached the map room. Or not, maybe not the map room, but like the central data storage of this place. And let's see here. We're definitely going to explore in here with this. But I think what this match represents is not only is this room open and available to them that they find on a fairly quick basis, so where we're not going to lose any of our progress on this clock down here, which is at 4 for those who are watching or who are listening and not watching. 4 out of 6 left. But this room has a generator in it. A generator and this room has been like sealed. There's no fungus or anything in here. There is in fact like it's been sealed. So everything is in good working condition. And this generator, by this generator, there is a sealed storage container with heart crystals. It may take a little bit of quick repairs, you know, like we did like Ash did at the door, cleaning up terminals and stuff like that, but not nearly as much as it wasn't exposed to the elements. It's mostly just making sure everything's in place, shoving the crystal in and turning it on, and all of these servers come to life. Vander very quickly finds themselves at a terminal typing away. They've plugged in their recorder and are just scooping gobfuls of data, onto their personal storage device. While Ash takes a look around, and we're going to explore this waypoint that we have so wonderfully found for ourselves. And it's a weak hit. On a weak hit, you uncover something interesting, but it's bound up in a peril or reveals an ominous aspect of this place. Envision what you encounter, then take +1 momentum. So, +1 momentum, a peril. I think this is an obvious time for a lovely, nasty creature to be discovered. Yes? I think that sounds like quite a bit of fun. And there are these wonderful creature oracles that we can get. There's all kinds of things that we'll get here. So the we said this place was sealed, so obviously the thing couldn't have been in here before. However, we opened the door and we turned it on, so it's making a lot of noise. There's probably a bunch of light and stuff. I definitely think as Ash is looking around these servers, and they're of interesting design. He can tell, looking at maybe some parts that were left out on a table for repair or something like that, that were left behind, that it's not the same level of computer and electrical engineering that they have now. This is for an engineer, this is probably the best evidence that you're dealing with an advanced society, looking at what they could do with their resources. The same resources, the same elements, the same, base metals and stuff like that we all have, but just going so much further with it, especially since they probably have tales of how it was before we lost our technology, before we lost our knowledge and had to flee to the Forge. Generations living on those capital ships, losing bits and pieces of not only your culture but your knowledge, as you could only take so much with you, and with each successive generation a little bit more of the stuff that was, we don't need to take this with us, we'll remember it, getting lost. And Ash is confronted with this, just the scale of this, of the difference of this people. Maybe this wasn't the whole empire, like we said. Maybe this was just a particularly knowledgeable subsection, but it's still mind-boggling. And that revelation is so rudely interrupted when he hears an ominous noise from the door. Now let's see what that is. Now in our environment here, we could roll for it. However, there isn't an option specifically that I was thinking that might be under the basic form. Let me check what the oracles are. Okay. So I did some looking into our options here. So the environment is basically a guide that modifies the rest of our stuff, mostly the shape that it gets. So I'm gonna set some stuff here instead of rolling for it, for what makes sense. So we've got space, land, liquid, air are your normal ones. The one that I needed to look into was interior, because to me that says like the interior of a vault, because it's the only thing else referenced with interior in the whatchamajig, in the books is the vault. So it's either the interior of the vault or the interior of a planet. Actually, let me double check something real quick here. Because there is a little symbol on that in the books. And I know I can do this. I can make this decision. I am trying not to deviate too far from the intended stuff here. Okay, I was wondering if a certain symbol matched up. It does not. So this either means the interior of the planet or the interior of a vault. I'm going to say the interior of the vault. As stuff tends to get really, really weird inside vaults. So let's get a little weird. So we're going to say the environment here is the interior. And I'm going to set the scale. We've got all the way from minuscule, bug-sized, to huge, whale-sized, until we get into the subsection of ultra. Now, we're probably not going to roll an ultra if we roll on this, because you need 100. And that gets into the 3 more subcategories of hill-sized, mountain-sized, or planet-sized. So I'm going to go with medium, which is person-sized, which is pretty big for a creature. Or here. So this is a medium creature from within the vault. Now we're going to roll for everything else. So what is the base form of this creature? Starfish or symmetrical? Okay, and the first look, we'll roll twice on this. Fungal growth, appropriate. And fangs or rows of teeth. So I'm picturing something. What I was hoping for, what I was planning to do for the environment here was amphibious or not fully aquatic, which is why I didn't pick liquid. But this works out well. So this is some sort of symmetrical thing with, I'm gonna go with rows of teeth. Maybe it's got more of a gem-shaped body. I'm thinking with like facets. Maybe it looks it's biological but looks more rock-like on the outside, some sort of hardened outer shell. Not chitinous, more like coral, I'm picturing, if we're gonna do something kind of amphibious. So it's like with a couple of with legs that are multi-jointed, so it can kind of roll and flip, not necessarily scuttling around like a spider or a crab, but like it could flip itself over to and walk just as fine, or go through a tunnel spiraling and always almost like a starship, where it's always oriented itself to be face up in one way or another. So it's probably got symmetrical organs and stuff like that, or at least a brain that's centralized within this I'm trying to think of the word. Almost, I'm picturing a body like a dodecahedron type thing, like a 12-sided die. I should say, because I'm sure people watching this are tabletop nerds like me and know what that looks like anyway. So, you know, something round-ish but flat and multifaceted on the sides with legs, and there's just like a central line that opens up somewhere along the center line of this body, so it's always oriented towards the outer edge, just this maw with rows and rows of needle-like teeth. They like not shark teeth, but how like some fish have those super thin needle-like teeth that just dig in and shred flesh. So that's gonna be fun. Now, encountered behavior. Let's see what this is like here. It's a trapper. So probably going to be what probably happens is Ash is almost in awe of the interior of these servers that he's seeing that are taken apart. When he hears a noise, and both him and Vander kind of look up, peek their heads around to check on each other, and they look at each other, and then where the noise came from, and each other, and Ash just nods, gets his sword at the ready, and starts creeping towards the door. He comes around the corner. The door is basically this open square of darkness, as this is the only room that has light. So he's creeping up. And he pokes his head around one way, then the other, really quick, looking back and forth. The little flashlight attached to his helmet lighting up a portion of the hallway until he realizes nothing's there. And then there's another noise from inside the room this time. And once again, they both peek around corners to check on each other. They're both still there. They're both still fine. But something is in the room with them. Felicity. I'm going to save this real quick to that place. Let's see what that looks like. Real quick. New creature. Now, I don't have a name for this creature. Unless you want to do like the Die of Doom or something like that. But that doesn't sound right for a creature. So if you have any ideas for what this creature might be named, leave a comment. And maybe we'll pick one of those. Or I'll let it percolate until the next session and maybe have a name for you guys when I think on it. But for now, Ash has a hunt. Which means we're gonna get into the combat rules. So first, I need to set a challenge. Add a progress clock because I still haven't looked into clearing this one out yet. We'll see here. This is because this is for vows, right? Yeah, this is a progress clock. We're gonna say this combat is troublesome because it's not a huge creature. It's a one-on-one. It's a not gonna be a massive fight for Ash. But it could pose some dangers, so we'll see here. I'm going to say we're going to label this as defend Vander from the creature, because that's really what we're doing. We don't care if we kill this creature. We may eventually run from it. So you know what? I'm going to put it up to dangerous, just to add, so it's not super easy to maybe accidentally one-shot this creature. But we're really just got to hold this off until Vander can get all the information that they think they need. We need to defend them from this thing until we can run. So we need to enter the fray. When you initiate combat or are forced into a fight, envision the objective, give it a rank. Done. And then roll to see if you are in control. And what you roll with is based on what it is. So we aren't on the move. We aren't facing off against our foe. We aren't in the thick of it in close quarters. we aren't preparing to act against an unaware foe. In fact, we are the last and probably most favorable situation, caught in a trap or sizing up the situation. So we have a creature that is stalking us. There's a bunch of cover in this place for these. I'm picturing like big towers of like old school type terminals, or even more modern, probably more modern looking terminals, but there's a massive amount of data here that couldn't be taken with them. So they probably, if this place was abandoned and didn't just die off, when we haven't seen bodies inside this facility, the only time we saw bodies was around the sanctum, which could have been, well, no, we would have known it was the original inhabitants because we would have seen remnants of their implants and their cybernetics and stuff. Assuming not all of them could have been scavenged or would have been scavenged. So we know it wasn't the inhabitants that were there. So the inhabitants most likely left. So let's see if we can take advantage, if we can get the best of this creature to start out with, or if it gets the best of us. Rolling to enter the fray, plus wits. And that is a weak hit. Not a great look for us. On a weak hit, choose one. Either take +2 momentum, or we are in control. I think we're going to take +2 momentum. That brings us up to 9, so we can get ourselves out of a bad situation. So we are in a bad spot, which means we need to react under fire or clash. I think we're going to clash. When you're in a bad spot and fight back against a foe at close quarters, roll +iron, or when you exchange fire to distance, roll +edge. So I think, not being able to find out where this creature is, Ash is going to circle up with Vander, putting his back to theirs to make sure this thing can't get the drop on them, even if it means it gets the drop on him, which it absolutely does. Probably hears a metallic thud as this thing drops from the ceiling on top of the servers, and Ash looks up to see it tilting its body down and exposing this wide, flat maw full of needle-like teeth and lunging forward as Ash lunges forward with his sword to engage the beast in glorious combat. And it is in fact glorious combat as we roll a strong hit. On a strong hit, you mark progress twice. You overwhelm your foe and are in control. Now, I think I should have rolled that with +1. When you clash or strike in close quarters, add a strong hit. Add +1. On a strong hit with a match, you are unstoppable, mark progress. So it's not a match. But we'll need to remember that next time we strike or clash, that we get +1. But it is a strong hit. We get to mark progress twice on this challenge. So that's 4 boxes of progress out of 10. I will try to call out how much progress we have going forward, as some of you probably aren't watching these videos. I know I like to listen to tabletop sessions while I'm at work and whatnot. So if you are doing the same, if you are doing that, hello. I hope I'm helping your day go by faster, and I hope you're having a not utterly horrible day stuck at work. But for now, we need to figure out what we're going to do next, which I don't think is going to be direct combat. Is it gain ground when you're in control and take action in a fight to reinforce your position or move towards an objective? Okay. So here's what I'm going to roll to secure an advantage here, because I want to make sure, I want to maneuver this fight away from Vanderbond. So basically this will, if we're successful, not only will this put us in a good situation, but it will ensure that Vander is out of the line of fire for any sort of, you know, flying monster bodies or flying ash bodies, as it may go. I think we need to roll with Shadow that feels... I could see maybe an argument for wits, but not really. Expertise, focus, or observation. Maybe if Ash was some sort of like fancy footwork fencer type fighter, but he's more of the armored knight longsword type. Despite him not having armor, he probably really needs to fix that. So this is more trying to use clever positioning, or would that be gain ground? Coordinating a plan, or cleverly gaining leverage. Okay, I've talked myself back into wits, but I've also talked myself into a different move. I was looking at gain ground for a second, thought it didn't make sense, but yeah, we're trying to use clever positioning to either, like, you know, dodge in a way that makes it overshoot and takes it farther away from Vander, that we can then close the distance and re-engage in a different spot, or bodily push it, using aggressive moves to oh wait, no, okay, in pursuit, fleeing, or maneuvering. So I once again talked myself into something different. We're going to gain ground using edge because we are maneuvering. I missed that in my earlier. So we're going to gain ground with edge. We have 9 momentum to try and make this work if it doesn't work well for us. Let's see what happens. Ash and this thing engage. It tries to take a chomp, and Ash just cuts up the inside of its mouth in all kinds of uncomfortable ways. It pulls back, kind of shaking its whole body, letting out this high-pitched, just not painfully high, but uncomfy. Like, this is not a sound that a creature should make. Squeal, chittering squeal type situation is what I'm picturing. And before it can take the advantage again, Ash is going to press forward, trying to get it to move back or to bait it into attacking him in a way that will put him in a better position. So we're going to roll plus edge here. And we got a strong hit with a match. So on a hit, you stay in control. On a strong hit, choose 2. On a weak hit, choose 1. So on a strong hit, we get to choose 2. I'm going to choose to mark progress as we get a couple of maybe a minor cut or 2 on this thing, on like the outer edge. Its outer shell is hard, but we've got that alchemically reinforced sword of Ashes, so it might bite in and, if not do damage, discourage it and get it to stumble back. We're also going to take +1 on your next move, which is not a progress move. On a strong hit, you know what? On a strong hit, I'm gonna say that Vander is finished. Vander has gotten the progress, has gotten all the data they need, and we're ready to go. We just have to get away from this thing. So that I'm gonna say that's what our match is. Now we're in control, so we've got a couple of different options. We could strike, or we could take decisive action. Take decisive action is like the end of the fight move. I think we're going to strike. It's in a bad spot right now. We're in control. Vander has unplugged and is working their way around the like the edge of this battle, probably putting some terminals between them and the fight. And Ash is putting his back to Vander, keeping himself between them and the creature. So he's gonna try and put some hurt on this thing while he's got the advantage. We've got our Blade Master, which also gives us +1 to our roll with iron, and we've got +1 on our next move. So we got +2, so we've got a total of +4 on this. This is probably when it goes horribly, horribly wrong. Let's roll plus iron and see if we can put some real damage on this thing. And it's another strong hit. Alrighty then. So on a strong hit, you mark progress twice, which is going to fill our progress track to 10 against this creature. Now it's time to take decisive action. When you see the objective in a fight, envision how you take decisive action and then roll the challenge dice and compare to your progress. I think Ash is just going to try and finish this thing off. It is hurt. It is bloody. It is staggering around, thrashing about. Instead of trying to lock this in here or something like that and leave it for the next person to find, Ash wouldn't do that. Ash would try and finish this off. He's got a really good chance of doing it with 10 out of 10 progress. So let's make our progress roll and see what happens. And it is a decisive strong hit of 10 versus 2 and 9. On a strong hit, you prevail, take +1 momentum. If any object remains in the fight continues. You are in control. Nothing here is like that. So we're good to go. +1 momentum. We're up to 10 out of 10 momentum getting out of this. So there is nothing. I am going to, after that fight, I'm going to tick this progress down. We've got data going forward for exploring the Precursor Vault. I'm going to mark progress here on this one, discovering and exploring the Precursor site. We're getting into the sanctum, getting the stuff, and let's I think we need to undertake a journey. You don't always have to roll this, but because I've repeatedly said how confusing and hard to navigate this place is, I think we need to do one more, undertake an expedition, rolling plus wits, to get our way out quickly. If we get lost in this last bit, the clock could run out, but Ash didn't take any damage, so he's probably safe. But there is the chance that they could get lost on the way out. So let's check one more time. We can always burn our momentum if we need to, just to really solidify that we've gotten out of this place. So rolling plus wits to undertake an expedition and get the heck out of here. A weak hit. Okay. So what I'm going to say is they definitely get a little lost. So I'm going to take this down to a 2. I'm going to take this down to 1. I'm going to take it down 2 ticks for as a suffer move, because you suffer costs in route, make a suffered move -2 or 2 -1. I'm going to say this is the suffer move, as it's going to be really bad if this ends up going bad. So, but we have fully explored. We're the light is literally at the end of the tunnel as Ash and Vander are jogging, half jogging, borderline sprinting towards the exit to get out and into the fresh air. They want to get out of the sanctum, back into where it's safer, so they can, because even if even if they're relatively safe still, it can't be fun knowing that you're potentially breathing in deadly fungus. So they're going to slowly pick up more and more speed as they get to the entryway, that big tunnel lit up in the sky, and they leave full on sprinting up this ramp, let's roll. I'm not gonna roll this like an actual expedition at the end. Or I'm gonna roll. Well, no, we'll roll on the vow. I'm gonna mark progress and say we've gotten out. So we're at 9 out of 10 progress. And then we're gonna roll to fulfill that vow. I'm not gonna roll to finish the expedition here because I don't think that'd basically be giving double XP for the same thing. And I don't think that's in good spirit. I don't think that's good form, so to speak, as Hook would say from the Robin Williams Peter Pan movie. But let's roll here to fulfill our vow to explore this precursor site. Which is green. I thought it was green. Fulfill your vow. When you reach the end of the quest, roll the challenge dice and compare to your progress. So we've got 9 progress. Let's see how this ends up. A strong hit and a clean getaway. On a strong hit, your vow is fulfilled. Mark your reward on your quest legacy track per the vow's rank. It was formidable, so we get 1 box on our... I think that's here. Yes. On our quest. Yes. So 1, 2, 1, 2. So we've got 1 box finished, which means another 2 XP for us, and we're halfway towards another box. We're also 1 tick away from some XP on our discoveries. So I think we're gonna wait to maybe find one of those. In whatchamajig, to fill one of those to maybe get us a new asset before we level up again. So they're out, they're clear, they're able to leave and head back towards town. Those people before seem to have not found their way in yet, or they have given up and gone away. So, I think that's a good point to leave it off. Actually, first, we've completed a vow with Vander towards something that is important to them. So I am going to mark another progress. I think we're gonna see, I think we're gonna look into solidifying this bond, or this connection into a proper bond next time. But we'll pick up with that conversation next time. They had a surprisingly successful and safe journey, which is great because Ash was not in great spirits before that. I might just bump that up a few at the beginning of the next session just because of the successful thing, or we'll see. But they had, well, there was some danger and some minor setbacks. This was overall a very, very successful mission for Ash, and he's very happy with how this turned out and is very excited to report back on his findings. But we'll see how that goes. That's a conversation he's gonna have with his superiors. For now, however, we're gonna call it here and end this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this, the concluding chapter of this part of the adventure. It went so much better than I thought it was going to based on our rolls last week. It seems our luck has continued, which means we're just building up to get smacked down at some point here, or maybe Ash's luck is just finally turned around and things are starting to go his way. We'll see next time. If you want to see it, like the video and subscribe so the algorithm will bring you back. And I will see you guys in the next one. You all have a lovely day.